Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the starship New Horizon and watched the massive alien space station grow larger on the view screen. After 3 months of traveling through hyperspace, humanity had finally reached SciFiPrime, a capital world of the Galactic Empire. Jake felt his heart racing as he looked at the incredible sight before them. The station was 10 times larger than anything humans had ever built, with gleaming metal towers that stretched for miles in every direction. "Sir, we're receiving a communication from the station," reported Lieutenant Amy Foster from her position at the communications console. Her voice carried the same excitement that Jake felt. This was the moment that would change human history forever. "Put it through, Lieutenant," Jake replied, straightening his uniform. The view screen flickered, and the image of an alien appeared. The creature looked like a giant lizard that walked on 2 legs, with dark green scales and bright yellow eyes. Despite its frightening appearance, the alien smiled in what seemed like a friendly way. "Welcome, humans of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Commander Vexenal of the Imperial Navy. Chancellor Crixenal is eager to meet with your delegation. Please follow our guide ships to the diplomatic docking bay." Jake nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Commander Vexenal. We are honored by your welcome." The communication ended, and Jake turned to his crew. "This is it, people. We're about to make first contact with an entire galactic civilization. Let's make humanity proud." 3 hours later, Jake walked through the corridors of SciFiPrime alongside Dr. Lisa Chun, Earth's chief xenobiologist, and Admiral Paul Rogers, who commanded Earth's small but growing space fleet. The alien architecture was unlike anything they had seen, with curved walls that seemed to glow with their own inner light. Alien beings of dozens of different species walked past them, some floating, others crawling, and a few that looked almost human. "The diversity is incredible," Dr. Chun whispered as they followed their Vex-Thai escort. "There must be hundreds of different species living here in harmony." Their escort, a younger Vex-Thai who had introduced himself as Lieutenant Zixcan, overheard her comment. "The Empire is home to over 3,000 different species," he said proudly. "We have achieved what your people call unity through diversity. Each species contributes their unique gifts to make the Empire stronger." Admiral Rogers looked impressed. "How long has the Empire existed?" "Nearly 50,000 of your Earth years," Lieutenant Zixcan replied. "We have brought peace and prosperity to countless worlds. Your species will find a welcome place among us." They entered a vast chamber where Chancellor Crixenal waited for them. The alien leader was larger than the others they had met, with golden scales instead of green and elaborate robes that marked his high position. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of authority that came from ruling an empire that spanned the galaxy. "People of Earth," Chancellor Crixenal began, "today marks a new chapter in galactic history. Your species has shown remarkable potential in your short time among the stars. We offer you membership in our great empire with all the benefits and protections that come with it." Jake felt a surge of pride and hope. "Chancellor, on behalf of all humanity, we are deeply honored by your offer. Earth has much to contribute to galactic civilization." Over the following weeks, the human delegation was amazed by the generosity of their new alien allies. The Empire shared medical technologies that could cure diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. They provided defensive systems that could protect Earth from asteroids and other space hazards. Most importantly, they offered friendship and guidance as humanity took its first steps into the larger galaxy. Dr. Chun worked day and night with alien scientists in the Empire's research facilities. Together, they developed new treatments for cancer and other illnesses that had killed millions of humans. She sent regular reports back to Earth, describing the incredible advances they were making. "The Empire's knowledge is beyond anything we imagined," she wrote. "Working with them, we can eliminate human suffering within a generation. Admiral Rogers was equally impressed by the Empire's military technology and tactics. He spent hours with Imperial commanders learning about space combat and defensive strategies. The Empire's weapons were centuries ahead of anything humans had developed, and their ships could travel faster and farther than human vessels. "They're teaching us everything," he reported to Earth's military leaders. "With their help, humanity will be safe from any threat." Jake coordinated the cultural exchange programs that brought human art, music, and literature to alien worlds throughout the Empire. In return, humans learned about the rich histories and traditions of species that had existed for millions of years. Children on Earth watched alien cartoons, while alien youngsters learned to play human games like baseball and chess. But not everything the humans shared was cultural. Earth scientists eagerly provided detailed information about human technology, believing they were contributing to galactic scientific advancement. They shared the specifications for human computers, communication systems, and weapons. Human military officers provided strategic information about Earth's defenses, thinking they were helping their new allies understand how to better protect human space. The Empire's representatives asked many questions about human psychology and social structures. They wanted to know how human governments worked, what motivated human soldiers in battle, and how human societies responded to crisis. The humans answered every question openly, proud to share the knowledge that made their species unique. Chancellor Crixenel personally oversaw many of these exchanges. He seemed particularly interested in human military capabilities and asked detailed questions about Earth's defense systems. "We must understand your strengths," he explained, "so we can best integrate human forces into our Imperial defense network." After 6 months on SciFiPrime, Jake began to feel homesick. The Empire had been generous hosts, but he missed Earth and wanted to return home to share everything they had learned. Dr. Chun had filled dozens of data storage devices with medical information that would revolutionize human healthcare. Admiral Rogers had detailed plans for upgrading Earth's military with Imperial technology. "We should begin planning our return to Earth," Jake suggested during a meeting with Chancellor Crixenel. "Our people are eager to hear about everything we've discovered here." Chancellor Crixenel's yellow eyes seemed to glitter as he smiled. "Of course, Captain Morrison. You have been most helpful guests. Your species has contributed much to our understanding of the galaxy." Jake felt proud as he prepared for the journey home. Humanity had made its mark on galactic civilization, and the future looked brighter than ever. He had no way of knowing that in the Imperial intelligence centers, alien analysts were using every piece of information the humans had provided to plan something terrible. The Empire had learned everything it needed to know about human technology, psychology, and defenses. They had mapped every human colony and cataloged every human strength and weakness. Most importantly, they had confirmed what they had suspected from the beginning. Humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to exist as an independent species. Chancellor Crixenel watched the human ship depart from SciFiPrime and allowed himself a satisfied smile. The humans had served their purpose perfectly, providing all the intelligence the Empire needed for what would come next. Soon, the galaxy would be rid of this troublesome species forever. Commander Alex Stone floated in the zero-gravity section of Haven Station and watched the construction crews work on the newest addition to their hidden base. 3 years had passed since the Empire's betrayal. 3 years since the aliens had used humanity's trust against them and nearly wiped out the entire human species. The memory of that terrible day still burned in Alex's mind like a fresh wound. He remembered being on Luna Base when the attack began. The sky had filled with alien ships that appeared without warning, ships built with human technology that the Empire had stolen during those months of so-called friendship. The orbital bombardment lasted for 6 hours. turning Earth's great cities into burning ruins and killing billions of innocent people. Alex had watched helplessly as the planet that gave birth to humanity became a graveyard. "Commander, we have a new group of survivors coming in," reported Lieutenant Danny Clark from the communications station. Captain Morrison found them hiding in the wreckage of the Chicago Underground. 43 people, including 12 children. Alex nodded grimly. Every survivor they found was a small victory against the Empire's attempt to destroy humanity. Completely. Haven Station had started with just a few hundred refugees, but now housed nearly 50,000 humans who refused to give up the fight. The base was built inside a massive asteroid in what used to be the Titan mining sector, hidden from Empire sensors by the electromagnetic interference from the surrounding rocks. Dr. Maria Santos entered the command center, carrying a datapad filled with the latest intelligence reports. Once she had been a peaceful researcher studying alien cultures, but the Empire's betrayal had transformed her into one of humanity's most effective spies. Her dark hair was streaked with gray now, aged by the stress of coordinating resistance. Operations across dozens of star systems. "We intercepted another Empire communication," Maria said, handing Alex the datapad. "They're still telling the galaxy that humanity is extinct. The official story is that we destroyed ourselves in a nuclear war before they could save us." Alex read the report and felt his anger growing. The Empire had not been content with murdering billions of humans. They also wanted to destroy humanity's reputation, making sure that other species would never learn the truth about the betrayal. According to Empire propaganda, humans had been a violent and unstable species that was better off extinct. "Any word from our people in the outer colonies?" Alex asked. Maria smiled, and for a moment she looked like the hopeful scientist she had once been. Captain Narration made contact with the new Perth colony. They survived the initial attack and have been hiding in the asteroid belt. That brings our confirmed survivor count to over 200,000 humans scattered across 40 different systems. In the engineering section of Haven Station, Chief Engineer Ben Carter worked with a team of mechanics to modify captured Empire equipment. The workshop was filled with the sounds of welding torches and power tools as humans combined their ingenuity with stolen alien technology. Ben had been a civilian engineer before the war, designing mining equipment for asteroid operations. Now he spent his days creating weapons that could fight back against the species that had betrayed them. "Hand me that plasma conduit," Ben called to his assistant, Sarah Kim, who had been a graduate student in physics before becoming a resistance fighter. Together, they were working on Ben's latest project, a modified Empire plasma rifle that could fire twice as fast and hit 3 times harder than the original design. The Empire never bothered to improve their own technology, Sarah observed as she watched Ben install the upgraded components. They just stole innovations from other species and used them without making them better. Ben nodded as he sealed the weapon's housing. That's going to be their weakness. They've been conquering and stealing for so long that they forgot how to create. We still remember how to make things better. The first test of the modified weapon exceeded their expectations. The plasma bolt burned through 3 layers of Empire armor plating that would have stopped the original design. Ben smiled as he imagined Empire soldiers discovering that their stolen human technology was no longer superior to what the humans could build. Colonel Sam Hayes ran the training program that turned civilian survivors into effective soldiers. The gymnasium of Haven Station echoed with the sounds of combat practice as men and women who had once been teachers, farmers, and office workers learned how to fight like warriors. Sam had been a Marine Corps instructor before the war, and she brought that same intensity to training the resistance fighters. "The Empire fights like they've always fought," Sam explained to her newest group of trainees. "They use overwhelming force and expect their enemies to surrender. They don't know how to handle opponents who refuse to give up and who strike back from the shadows. The training program focused on guerrilla tactics that would confuse and frustrate Empire forces. Human fighters learned to attack quickly and disappear before the enemy could respond. They practiced sabotage techniques that could cripple Empire ships and equipment. Most importantly, they learned to work together as small teams that could operate independently behind enemy lines. Captain Jake Morrison had returned from his latest scouting mission with news that filled the Resistance leadership with hope. He stood before a gathering of senior officers in Haven Station's main conference room, his face bearing new scars from 3 years of dangerous operations. "I've made contact with Resistance cells on 15 more worlds," Jake reported. "Humans are fighting back everywhere the Empire thinks they've been eliminated. We're not just surviving anymore. We're organizing." Dr. Santos spread a holographic map of the galaxy across the conference table. Red dots marked known Empire military bases, while blue dots showed confirmed human resistance operations. The blue dots were scattered across hundreds of star systems, creating a network that the Empire had no idea existed. "The Empire's intelligence is 3 months behind reality," Maria explained. "They're still using their old systems to hunt for survivors, but we've learned to stay ahead of their search. Patterns. Every time they think they've found us, we're already gone." Alex studied the map and began to see possibilities that had seemed impossible just months before. The Empire believed humanity was a broken species hiding in the shadows, but the truth was very different. Humans were adapting, learning, and growing stronger with each passing day. The turning point came when the Resistance launched their first coordinated attack. 6 Empire supply convoys, traveling through different star systems, were hit simultaneously by human fighters using the improved weapons that Ben Carter had designed. The attacks were perfectly timed and executed, leaving the Empire with damaged ships, stolen supplies, and a growing realization that humanity was far from extinct. The Empire's response was swift and brutal, but their hunting fleets found nothing but empty space where they expected to discover human bases. The Resistance fighters had vanished like ghosts, leaving behind only wreckage and the knowledge that humanity was still fighting. News of the successful attacks spread through the hidden network of human survivors like wildfire. People who had lived in fear for 3 years began to hope again. Children who had grown up knowing only defeat began to believe they might see victory. The Empire had betrayed humanity and tried to destroy them, but they had failed to understand the most important thing about the human species: humans never gave up. General Zixstar paced across the bridge of his flagship and stared at the tactical display, showing another failed hunt for human survivors. The Vexthai commander had been assigned to eliminate the remaining human resistance 6 months ago, but every operation had ended in failure. His hunting fleets found empty asteroid bases and abandoned supply depots, while the humans seemed to vanish like smoke whenever Imperial forces approached. "Sir, we're receiving reports of another attack," his aide announced nervously. "The supply convoy in the Kepler system has been destroyed. No survivors." Zixstar's claws scraped against the metal railing as his anger grew. These attacks were becoming more frequent and more damaging. The humans were no longer just hiding and surviving. They were actively fighting back, and their tactics were unlike anything the Empire had faced in centuries of conquest. Meanwhile, in the hidden shipyards of the Outer Rim, Chief Engineer Ben Carter watched as the first ghost ship completed its final systems check. The vessel looked like a standard Imperial patrol craft from the outside, but Ben had filled it with technology that would make it invisible to Empire sensors. The stealth systems were based on human innovations that the Empire had stolen, but never fully understood. "All systems show green," reported Captain Lisa Park from the pilot's seat. Lisa had been a cargo ship captain before the war, hauling mining equipment between the outer colonies. Now she commanded humanity's most advanced warship, a vessel that could strike at the Empire without being detected. Ben smiled as he watched the sensor displays remain completely blank, even though the ghost ship was floating right in front of them. The Empire's sensors are looking for metal signatures and energy emissions, he explained. Our ships are built with materials that absorb those signatures instead of reflecting them. To their instruments, we simply don't exist. The ghost ship's first mission was a complete success. Captain Park guided her vessel into the heavily defended Kalen system, where the Empire maintained a massive battle station that controlled shipping routes for dozens of worlds. The station's defensive sensors never detected the approaching human ship, and its weapons never fired a single shot before the ghost ship's upgraded plasma cannons turned it into expanding debris. Dr. Maria Santos received the mission report. While working in her intelligence center on Haven Station, the destruction of the Kalen battle station had sent shockwaves through the Empire's military command. For the first time in their history, an Imperial fortress had been destroyed by an enemy they couldn't see or track. The Empire is calling it an equipment malfunction, Maria told Commander Stone as they reviewed the intercepted communications. They're telling their people that the battle station's reactor exploded accidentally. Alex nodded as he studied. The intelligence reports. They can't admit that humans destroyed it, because that would mean admitting we're still alive and fighting back. But their military commanders know the truth. Maria's network of spies had been busy gathering information about the Empire's internal structure, and what they discovered gave the Resistance new hope. The Empire was not the unified alliance it pretended to be. Many of the member species had been conquered and forced to serve, held in line by fear rather than loyalty. The Eldari people have been slaves for over 200 years, Maria explained as she showed Alex files about the aquatic species. Their homeworld is being strip mined for rare minerals, and their population has been reduced to less than 1 million. They would rebel if they thought they had any chance of success. The revelation changed everything about humanity's strategy. Instead of just fighting for survival, they would fight to liberate the Empire's enslaved species. Commander Stone made the decision that would transform the Resistance into something much larger and more dangerous. Captain Jake Morrison led the first liberation mission to the Eldari homeworld of Aquatica. His strike force consisted of 3 ghost ships carrying weapons, supplies, and most importantly, a message of hope. The Empire had turned the beautiful ocean world into an industrial wasteland, with massive mining platforms floating above cities that had once been centers of Eldari culture. The attack came without warning to the Empire. Garrison, ghost ships, appeared from nowhere and destroyed the orbital defense platforms before the Imperial forces could react. Jake's fighters disabled the mining equipment and evacuated thousands of Eldari refugees to hidden bases in the outer systems. But the most important part of the mission was the message that Jake broadcast to every Eldari still trapped on their dying world. Speaking in their own language, which Maria's intelligence team had learned from intercepted communications, Jake told them that humanity had not forgotten what it meant to fight for freedom. The Empire betrayed us and tried to destroy us, Jake's message said, but we survived and we're fighting back. We offer you the same choice we made. You can remain slaves, or you can join us and reclaim your freedom. The Psychological Warfare Division, led by former journalist Kate Wilson, began broadcasting similar messages throughout Empire space. Kate had worked for Earth's largest news network before the war, and she understood how to reach people's hearts and minds. Her broadcasts used modified human communication technology that operated on frequencies the Empire couldn't detect or jam. The Empire wants you to believe that resistance is hopeless. Kate's voice carried across dozens of star systems. They want you to think that slavery is better than death. But we humans chose to fight, and we're still here. We're still fighting, and we're winning. The broadcasts told the truth about humanity's betrayal and the Empire's lies. They shared stories of human courage and victories against impossible odds. Most importantly, they offered hope to species that had lived without it for generations. Response was immediate and powerful. The Corvani warrior clans, enslaved for 800 years, began attacking Empire facilities on their homeworld. The peaceful Mentari started sabotaging the factories where they were forced to work. Even some of the Empire's trusted species began questioning their loyalty to a government built on lies and oppression. Within 6 months, 3 major species had openly declared rebellion against Empire rule. The galaxy that had been peaceful, under Imperial control, suddenly erupted in violence as oppressed peoples fought for their freedom. Empire forces found themselves fighting on dozens of fronts simultaneously, facing enemies they had never expected to resist. Chancellor Crixno called an emergency session of the Imperial Council as reports of rebellion poured in from across the galaxy. The alien leader who had once seemed so confident now looked worried as he faced the reality of a multi-front war that threatened the Empire's very existence. How did this happen? Crixnell demanded of his intelligence officers. These species have been loyal for centuries. Why are they rebelling now? The answer came from General Zixstar, whose hunting fleets had still failed to eliminate the human. Resistance. It's the humans, Chancellor. They're not just fighting for themselves anymore. They're inspiring others to fight. Their message is spreading faster than we can contain it. Crixnell's yellow eyes glowed with rage as he realized the magnitude of his mistake. The Empire had betrayed humanity, thinking they were eliminating a dangerous rival. Instead, they had created something far worse, a species that could inspire others to reject the Empire's authority. The humans had learned something that the Empire had forgotten during its long rule. Freedom was not something that could be given or taken away by others. It was something that every intelligent being carried within themselves, waiting for the courage to claim it. Humanity had found that courage in the darkness of betrayal, and now they were sharing it with the galaxy. Admiral Paul Rogers emerged from the hidden shipyard's command center and looked out at the most beautiful sight he had seen since the betrayal began 4 years ago. Floating in the asteroid field before him was humanity's new battle fleet, 50. Warships that had been constructed in complete secrecy using salvaged Empire materials and human engineering. The ships gleamed under the light of the distant star, each one a testament to human determination and ingenuity. Admiral, all ships report ready for departure, announced Captain Beth Martinez from the communication station. Beth had been a supply officer before the war, but like so many others, she had learned new skills out of necessity. Now she coordinated the complex logistics that kept the human resistance supplied and armed. Paul nodded as he watched the final preparations. These ships represented more than just military hardware. They were proof that humanity had not only survived the Empire's attempt at genocide, but had grown stronger because of it. Each vessel incorporated lessons learned from years of guerrilla warfare and featured improvements that made them superior to comparable Empire ships. Meanwhile, on the liberated world of New Corvana, General Thector of the Corvani warrior clans knelt before Commander Alex Stone in the ancient ritual of blood brotherhood. The massive reptilian warrior wore scars from decades of fighting against Empire oppression, and his people had finally broken free from 8 centuries of slavery thanks to human inspiration and support. By the sacred fire of our ancestors, Thector spoke in his deep, rumbling voice, the Corvani clans pledge their honor to the human cause. Your courage has reminded us what it means to be warriors instead of slaves. Alex accepted the ritual blade that Thector offered, knowing that this moment represented something far more important than a military alliance. The Corvani were the fiercest fighters in the galaxy, and their decision to join the rebellion had inspired dozens of other species to openly resist. Empire ruled. Dr. Maria Santos worked with a team of liberated alien scientists in the research facility on Haven Station. And together, they were making discoveries that shocked even her. The Empire had been suppressing technological development among their subject species for millennia, keeping them dependent on stolen innovations rather than allowing them to advance on their own. "Look at this," said Dr. Velther, a Mentari physicist, whose people had been forced to work in Empire factories for generations. His 4 arms moved quickly across the holographic display as he showed Maria his latest findings. "My people developed faster-than-light communication 3,000 years ago, but the Empire buried our research and claimed the technology as their own." Maria studied the alien equations and felt her excitement growing. "If we can combine your communication technology with human quantum computing, we could create an instantaneous network that spans the entire galaxy. The Empire would never be able to intercept or jam our messages." The breakthrough came when they successfully tested the new communication system between Haven Station and the Corvani homeworld. Messages that would have taken weeks to travel through hyperspace now arrived instantaneously, allowing the rebellion to coordinate operations across vast distances with perfect timing. Captain Lisa Park stood on the bridge of her ghost ship as the largest military operation in human history began to unfold. Operation Payback would strike at Empire military installations across 50 star systems simultaneously, using the new communication network to coordinate attacks with perfect precision. Lisa's ship was part of the assault on SciFiPrime itself, the heart of the Empire that had betrayed humanity. "All ghost ships report ready," Lisa announced over the secure communication channel. "Remember, our targets are military installations only. We're not like the Empire. We don't murder civilians." The first wave of attacks caught the Empire completely off guard. Ghost ships appeared without warning at military bases that had stood unconquered for thousands of years. Empire commanders watched in horror as their most secure installations were destroyed by enemies they couldn't see or track. Fleet yards that built Imperial warships became expanding clouds of debris. Communication hubs that had coordinated Empire operations for centuries went silent forever, but the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source. Chief Engineer Ben Carter had spent months working on humanity's ultimate weapon, a device he called the Freedom Cannon. The massive energy projector could destroy entire planets, but Ben had built it with a crucial difference from Empire weapons. The Freedom Cannon was designed to spare civilian populations while eliminating military targets. The weapon's first demonstration took place in the Rigel system, where the Empire maintained their largest military academy. The Freedom Cannon fired once, and the Academy planet's entire military infrastructure simply vanished. Every weapon, every ship, every fortification was reduced to atoms, but the civilian cities remained completely untouched. The psychological impact was immediate and overwhelming. Species throughout the Empire realized that humanity possessed the power to destroy their worlds, but chose not to use it against innocent people. This mercy, so different from the Empire's brutal methods, convinced even loyal Imperial citizens to question their government's authority. General Zixstar received the reports of the attacks while aboard his flagship in the Vega system. 50 military installations destroyed in a single day, thousands of Imperial ships eliminated, and not a single human casualty reported. The species he had been ordered to hunt down and eliminate had become the greatest military threat the Empire had ever faced. "How many ghost ships do they have?" Zixstar demanded of his intelligence officers. "Our estimates range from 200 to over 500, sir," came the nervous reply. "They appear and disappear so quickly that we can't get accurate counts." Zixstar studied the tactical displays and realized that the Empire was facing something it had never encountered before. The humans weren't just fighting for conquest or revenge. They were fighting for principles, and that made them far more dangerous than any enemy the Empire had previously faced. Chancellor Crixenal called an emergency meeting of his most trusted advisors in the heavily fortified bunker beneath his palace. On SciFiPrime, the alien leader who had once seemed invincible now looked desperate as he faced the collapse of everything he had built. "The humans must be stopped," Crixenal declared, his voice filled with rage and fear. "They're destroying everything we've worked to create. If we don't eliminate them now, the Empire will fall." His military advisor, General Rextar, shook his head grimly. "Chancellor, our forces are spread too thin. We're fighting rebellions on over 100 worlds, and the humans keep appearing wherever we're weakest. Our ships can't fight enemies they can't see." Crixenal's claws scraped against the metal table as his desperation grew. "Then we'll force them to show themselves. Order all Imperial forces to begin targeting civilian populations on rebel worlds. When the humans see innocent people dying, they'll come out of hiding to stop us." The order was transmitted throughout the Empire, but something unexpected happened. Imperial commanders who had served loyally for decades refused to carry out genocide against the species that had shown them a better way. Entire fleets defected to the rebellion rather than murder civilians. The Empire's own military began to crumble from within as soldiers chose honor over obedience. The final blow came when Admiral Rogers led the human battle fleet in open combat for the first time since the betrayal. The engagement took place in the Sirius system, where an Imperial strike force had been assembled to destroy a refugee convoy carrying Eldari families to safety. The battle lasted only 3 hours, but it changed galactic history forever. Human ships, supported by Corvani warriors and Mentari engineers, completely destroyed the Imperial fleet without losing a single vessel. The Empire's military superiority, built over millennia of conquest, crumbled in the face of species fighting for freedom rather than fear. His news of the victory spread throughout the galaxy. Chancellor Crixenal realized that his betrayal of humanity had created the very thing he had tried to prevent. The Empire was falling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Chancellor Crixenal stood in the ruins of what had once been the United Nations building in New York and watched his last loyal soldiers prepare the final defensive positions. The irony was not lost on him that his final stand would take place on the world he had tried to destroy, among the ashes of the civilization he had betrayed. Earth's sky was filled with the ships of the Galactic Federation, the alliance of free species that had risen from the Empire's collapse. The journey to this moment had been swift and brutal. Within 6 months of Operation Payback, over half the Empire's territory had declared independence. Species that had been slaves for millennia threw off their chains and joined the growing Federation. Even Chancellor Crixenal's own people, the Vexthai, had turned against him when they learned the truth about humanity's betrayal. "Sir, our sensors detect Federation forces landing in all major cities," reported Commander Vexenal, the same alien, who had welcomed humanity to SciFiPrime 5 years ago. Now he served as one of Crixenal's few remaining loyalists, though his voice carried doubt and fear. Crixenal looked out at the blackened crater where Manhattan had once stood. The Empire's bombardment had killed millions of humans in this city. Alone, but somehow life had returned. Human survivors had rebuilt among the ruins, creating gardens where skyscrapers had fallen and schools where bombs had created wastelands. "They should hate us," Crixenal muttered as he watched human children playing in a park that had been built over a mass grave. "We destroyed their world, murdered their people, betrayed their trust. They should want revenge." But revenge was not what the Federation offered. Dr. Helen Clark, who had spent 4 years organizing resistance cells in Earth's ruins, emerged from the underground tunnels with a flag of truce. She had been a university professor before the war, teaching philosophy and ethics to young minds. Now she led the survivors who had turned their bombed cities into symbols of hope. "Chancellor Crixenel," Helen called across the rubble-strewn plaza. "I'm here to offer you the chance to surrender. No one else needs to die today." The alien leader studied the human woman who stood before him without fear. She was small and gray-haired, wearing simple clothes patched with repairs. Behind her came humans of all ages, many bearing scars from the Empire's bombardment, but none carrying weapons. They offered mercy to the being who had ordered their genocide. "I don't understand your species," Crixenel admitted as he walked forward. To meet her. "Any other race would demand blood for what I did to them." Helen smiled sadly as she looked around at the ruins of her world. "Revenge would make us like you, Chancellor. We chose to be better." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison led a strike team through the underground passages beneath the UN building. His mission was to capture Crixenel alive, not for execution, but for something the galaxy had never seen before. A trial where the accused would face justice instead of vengeance. Jake's team moved carefully through the tunnels, knowing that the Chancellor's guards were desperate and dangerous. "Contact ahead," whispered Sergeant Tom Lee, a former police officer who had learned military tactics during the Resistance. 2 guards at the main access point. Jake held up his hand for silence as he studied the tactical situation. The guards were young Vexthai soldiers who looked scared and confused. They had been told their entire lives that the Empire represented order and civilization, only to discover that their leaders were genocidal monsters. "This is Captain Morrison of the Galactic Federation," Jake called out. "You're surrounded, but we're offering you the chance to surrender. No one will be harmed if you lay down your weapons." The guards looked at each other with uncertainty. One of them, barely more than a juvenile, began to lower his rifle. The other, an older soldier with battle scars, kept his weapon aimed at the approaching humans. "They're lying," the older guard hissed. "Humans are violent and treacherous. They'll kill us the moment we surrender." "No," a younger guard replied, his voice filled with doubt. "I've heard the broadcasts. The humans spare their prisoners. They treat them better than we treated our slaves." A standoff ended when the young guard threw down his weapon and stepped forward with his hands raised. His courage broke the resolve of his companion, who also surrendered rather than die for a cause he no longer believed in. The final confrontation came in the ruins of the General Assembly Hall, where representatives from all of Earth's nations had once gathered to discuss peace and cooperation. Chancellor Crixenel waited there with his last handful of loyalists, surrounded by the symbols of the civilization he had tried to destroy. "It ends here," Crixenel declared as Jake's team entered the hall. "I will not be taken alive to face your human justice." But Jake had not come alone. With him were representatives from every species that had suffered under Empire rule. General Fektor of the Corvani stood beside Dr. Velther of the Mentari, and dozens of others who had found freedom through humanity's example. "This isn't human justice," Jake said as he approached the alien leader. "This is galactic justice. You will face a tribunal of all the peoples you oppressed, and they will decide your fate according to law, not revenge." The trial of Chancellor Crixenel became the most important legal proceeding in galactic history. Representatives from over 100 species gathered in the restored UN building to witness justice being served for the first time in their lives. The proceedings were broadcast throughout the galaxy, showing everyone that the new Federation would be governed by law rather than force. Crixenel was found guilty of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against sentient beings. But instead of execution, the tribunal sentenced him to life in prison, where he would spend his remaining years helping to educate future generations about the dangers of tyranny and the importance of freedom. The establishment of the Galactic Federation marked the beginning of a new era for the galaxy. Commander Alex Stone was elected as the Federation's first human president, chosen by the unanimous vote of species who had learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their ability to fight, but their willingness to die for the freedom of others. Dr. Maria Santos created the Interspecies Technology Sharing Initiative, which ensured that all Federation members would benefit from scientific advancement. The days of hoarding knowledge and stealing innovations were over, replaced by cooperation and mutual progress. Admiral Paul Rogers established the Federation Defense Force, a military organization dedicated to protecting freedom rather than conquering territory. The new military would serve all species equally, defending the weak against the strong and ensuring that no single group could ever again dominate the galaxy through force. The Ghost Fleet became the Federation Navy's elite unit, with Captain Lisa Park promoted to Admiral and given command of the vessels that had struck fear into the Empire's heart. But now these ships served as protectors rather than weapons of war, ensuring that trade routes remained safe and that no species could threaten another with impunity. Chief Engineer Ben Carter led the effort to rebuild Earth using technology shared by grateful Federation members. The planet that had been turned into a graveyard became a garden world where beings from across the galaxy came to study, learn, and remember the importance of freedom, the final scene of humanity's transformation. From victims to liberators took place in the gardens of New Geneva, where the Federation's headquarters had been established. Human children played alongside young beings from dozens of different species while their parents worked together to build a galaxy where betrayal and oppression were relics of the past. Kate Wilson, now the Federation's Director of Communications, watched the children play and remembered the dark days when humanity had seemed doomed to extinction. The empire that had ruled through fear was gone, replaced by a federation that governed through hope and cooperation. The species that had been dismissed as insignificant had become the catalyst for the greatest liberation in galactic history. Humanity had been betrayed and nearly destroyed, but their response had transformed the galaxy forever, proving that the greatest victory was not conquest, but the courage to help others find their freedom.